phone scrolling. Not to work, not to rest, not to anything they'd actually choose. 2.7 hours. That's 40 full days a year, gone. And the most unsettling part? A 2019 study from King's College London found that 40% of people who doom scroll regularly describe it as completely involuntary. They don't decide to do it. It just happens. In the next 9 minutes, I'm going to show you why, and the 3 friction-based techniques that the research says actually stop it. Here's the situation. You pick up your phone to check one thing. A notification, the time, a message, and 25 minutes later you surface, slightly worse than before, foggy, vaguely anxious, and unsure how it happened again. You've tried willpower. You've deleted the apps. You've even put the phone in another room, for about 3 days, before it crept back to the nightstand. The reason those fixes don't stick isn't a character flaw. It's because they're treating the wrong problem. Doom scrolling is not a discipline issue. According to behavioral neuroscience, it's an architectural one. The platforms are structurally engineered to hijack a specific vulnerability in your brain, and willpower was never designed to fight engineering. But here's what can. By the end of this video, I'll give you 3 techniques that work not by fighting your brain, but by working with how it's actually wired. To understand why scrolling is so hard to stop, you need to understand what it's doing to your dopamine system. Dopamine is not the pleasure chemical. That's a common misconception. Neuroscientist Andrew Huberman and others have clarified that dopamine is actually the anticipation chemical. It spikes in response to the possibility of reward, not the reward itself. And social media feeds are perfectly designed to exploit this. The variable reward schedule, sometimes interesting, sometimes boring, never predictable, is the same mechanism that makes slot machines impossible to walk away from. B.F. Skinner demonstrated this in the 1950s. Silicon Valley engineers rediscovered it in the 2010s. Your phone is a slot machine you carry in your pocket. Every time you pull down to refresh, your brain releases a small dopamine spike, not because something good is coming, but because something good might be coming. That uncertainty is the hook. And critically, this creates a tolerance loop. The more you scroll, the higher the threshold for what feels stimulating. Which means ordinary life, a conversation, a book, a quiet moment, starts to feel genuinely understimulating by comparison. That's not weakness. That's neuroscience. I want to give you one number before we go further. 47 seconds. That's the average time a knowledge worker now spends on a single task before switching to something else, according to a 2023 study from UC Irvine's informatics department. Not minutes, seconds. And it takes an average of 25 minutes to return to the original task at full cognitive depth after an interruption. That means if you check your phone 4 times in a work session, you may never, technically, do deep work at all that day. So what actually works? The research points clearly to one category of intervention: friction design. Not motivation, not screen time warnings, which studies show people dismiss in under 2 seconds. Friction, deliberate, physical, environmental barriers that interrupt the automatic behavior before the brain's reward circuit engages. Here are the 3 techniques with the strongest evidence base. Technique 1. Grayscale mode. A 2021 study in PLOS ONE found that switching your phone display to grayscale, removing all color, reduced screen time by an average of 37% over 2 weeks, with no other intervention. Color is a core part of what makes the feed visually compelling. Remove it and the pull weakens immediately. You can enable this in your phone's accessibility settings right now. Technique 2. The 20-second barrier. B.J. Fogg's behavior design research at Stanford shows that adding just 20 seconds of friction to a behavior dramatically reduces its frequency. Log out of your most used apps. Move them off your home screen into a folder, inside another folder. The extra steps don't feel like much, but they interrupt the automaticity of the behavior before it starts. The behavior requires a decision now, not a reflex. Technique 3. The phone out of reach rule. A 2017 study published in the Journal of the Association for Consumer Research found that even the visible presence of a smartphone, face down, silent, on a desk, measurably reduced available cognitive capacity. The brain is partly occupied simply knowing the phone is there, The fix: phone in another room during your most cognitively demanding hours. Not silenced, not face down, in another room.
If any of those 3 techniques just made you think, I should actually do that, that's the exact moment to hit like. It tells the algorithm this kind of content is worth surfacing. And it takes 2 seconds. Now, there's one more thing I want to cover, and it's the piece most productivity advice completely misses. Here's what most digital detox advice gets wrong. It focuses entirely on removal, delete the apps, use a dumb phone, go cold turkey. And for a small number of people, that works. For most, it creates a vacuum. And vacuums get filled, usually with the exact behavior you were trying to stop. The neuroscience here is from addiction research, and it applies directly. When a compulsive behavior is removed without replacement, the dopamine system actively seeks another variable reward source. You quit Instagram and find yourself compulsively checking email, or news, or WhatsApp. The behavior shifts. The pattern doesn't. The evidence-based approach is replacement, not removal. Specifically, identify what emotional state you're in when doom scrolling starts. Research from the University of Pennsylvania found 3 primary triggers: boredom, anxiety, and loneliness. Not habit. Emotional state. For boredom, have a single default alternative preloaded. A Kindle app on a dedicated page. A podcast already queued. A book already open on the desk. The bar for the alternative has to be lower than the bar for scrolling, which is why grayscale plus the 20-second barrier work so well in combination. You're simultaneously making scrolling harder and alternatives easier. For anxiety, the scroll is a numbing behavior. A 90-second physiological sigh, a double inhale through the nose, extended exhale through the mouth, activates the parasympathetic nervous system faster than any app. 2 of those in the anxiety trigger is chemically reduced. For loneliness, this one is harder, and it's the one the platforms exploit most deliberately. Send one message to one person. Not a scroll. A message. The social need is real, but the feed is synthetic social contact that doesn't actually resolve it. Remember the question from the beginning: why do 40% of people describe doom scrolling as involuntary? Because they are trying to stop a neurological pattern with a social decision. It was never a fair fight. Now you know what the actual fight is. And more importantly, how to win it without willpower. Here's what I want you to leave with today. Doom scrolling isn't a willpower problem. It's an architecture problem. And you fix architecture with friction, replacement, and environment, not resolve. 3 things you can do right now. Enable grayscale mode, move your top apps behind a folder, and identify which of the 3 emotional triggers, boredom, anxiety, or loneliness, is driving yours. That's it. That's the whole system. The research says those 3 shifts, done consistently, reduce problematic screen use by 30 to 40% within 2 weeks. One question for the comments before you go. Which of the 3 triggers is yours? Boredom, anxiety, or loneliness? I genuinely want to know, because it tells me which follow-up video to make next. Drop it below. If you want more research broken down this clearly, no fluff, no hustle content, just the actual science, subscribe. That's the only thing this channel does. And if this video landed, the one on why willpower is a myth goes even deeper on the same neuroscience. It's right here. I'll see you in it.